So that was a little bit odd.
They clearly did not do any good psychological testing on these two before they sent them up there. That's for sure.
That's probably the best point that's been made
Yeah.
so far.
They just they're like, "Are you good at running on a treadmill? Can you put on a spacesuit? You're off."
Let's see. We've got several candidates. One of them is an isolationist who has extreme religious beliefs, and the other one smiles and is happy all the time. But underneath that, psycho. Welcome to Don't Encourage Us, the show where we talk about the big ideas behind fiction projects of all different kinds: books, movies, TV shows, video games. Nothing's off limits. I'm your host, Vegetable, and I'm here with my co-host, Carrot. How are you doing today?
No, doing great, Vegetable.
Today we're discussing season 6 of Black Mirror, the BBC turned Netflix original series about how terrible humans are. But first, so you learn anything interesting this week? Got anything on your list?
Nothing really on the list since I was going through these Black Mirror episodes slowly
Hmm,
but surely.
it's a lot. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. So I read the short story that it's called Wool by Hugh Howey, and it's the short story that starts off the series that Silo, the new Apple TV show, is based on. Have you seen this? Have you
I
heard about
haven't heard
this?
about it. What is that?
So Apple's got a new show. It's about a bunch of humans who live in a silo. The outside world is barren and, it's just brown and everything's dead. And they're surviving in the silo, but they don't really know why they're there. They don't know how long they've been there. They have some very specific rules that govern their society. Anyway, I was curious, so I went back and read the book. I got the first book, and the first book started with a story that really seemed to end, and I was really curious, but it's like you read, like, 50 pages and it's kind of done. And I was really curious. So I did some research, and it turns out that there was originally just a short story, but it was so well received that the author came back and turned it into a whole series of books.
Hmm.
So I started the Apple series, Silo, and the first episode is like 96% of the short story. And I guess episode 2, which I didn't watch, is like probably wraps up the short story and then launches in with like new characters and new stories within this silo. So it was a really interesting way to see how they adapted a short story both into a novel series and then how Apple adapted that into a TV show. But apparently it's doing very well.
Yeah, so he worked backwards, basically, starting off with the short story, just kind of expanding out from that smaller work.
Yeah, you could say it that way.
How short is the original book?
So the original short story took me maybe half an hour to read, maybe 20 minutes. Probably wasn't that long. And I think I started it and then I was sort of falling asleep. So I picked it up the next day. So it's not particularly long. It's just one of those, it reads very much like one of those stories where the author felt inspired. They created a world. They really didn't need to fill in all the details in the background because it's just a short story. So it stays tight on really one character, sometimes two, and then that's kind of it, right? Then it wraps itself up, and then the greater mysteries are not really that important. But then he won a ton of awards. It got a lot of attention, and it seems like he came back and said, well, how could I fill in some of those other answers? So I think if you're a writer or if you love storytelling, it's an interesting thing to go check out the first novel, just read to the point where it's very obviously the end of a short story, and then ask yourself, like, what would you do, or how would you develop this further if you had success suddenly? So it's interesting. And then to see what Apple did with that, and it was good. I mean, they had great actors. I don't want to spoil this because there's some twists and turns and things like that, but it was just an interesting phenomenon, and it seems to
Yeah,
be
the
doing
short
well.
story into movie concept is something that I'm used to, but the
Mm,
short story into full blown series,
right.
it's not. I don't think it's as common.
Yeah, short story into novel series into TV series is not something I've seen either. So just wanted to mention it. I also had a chance to read All You Need Is Kill. Are you familiar with that?
No,
It's a
what is that?
Japanese, they call it light novel or light fiction. It's basically, or teen fiction. But it was adapted into a film starring Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt.
That repeating scenario. What is that movie called? Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow, very good. Your memory scores again. So, yeah, interesting. It's gone through a few names. It was, I think they finally settled on Edge of Tomorrow. It was going to be Live, Die, Repeat for a while because it's kind of a video game concept. For that, it was, of course, Groundhog Day 2, Ground Harder. So once they changed the name a few times, they settled on Edge of Tomorrow. And I read the novel. It was good. It's pretty light. It's I don't know, like I don't it's not the best thing I've ever read, but it is interesting to see the differences between how they handled the aliens and the time travel in the novel versus the movie. So
Mhm.
if you enjoyed that movie and you're upset there's not a sequel, it's an easy read. So it might be interesting to you.
I
Yeah.
thought that movie was pretty decent. I don't know how well it did in the box office though. Like I thought they had changed the name of it so that it would kind of resonate with audiences a little bit more.
Yeah. So I tried to research that, or at least I recall from back then, it was released under one title. And then when it was released on DVD, they changed the title. But I couldn't find anything really confirming that. So it seems like there were some maybe subheading changes or subtitle changes, or it was the packaging of the DVD that tried to shift the name or the emphasis of the name. So I'm not really sure, but it didn't land. It wasn't a flop by any means, but it didn't really connect with audiences the way they had hoped and promoted. I think it was a big summer release. They thought it was going to be a huge Tom Cruise, Top Gun Maverick style success, and it just quite didn't grab that audience the way they
And if you're
wanted.
interested in Top Gun Maverick, you should listen to our episode on Top Gun Maverick. Just got to put that out there
Mr. Marketing.
on all streaming platforms.
Well, good. So, yeah, I just wanted to hit on a couple of those things. So, today we're talking about Black Mirror. The title, of course, is an oxymoron. Mirrors need to reflect things, and black, by definition, absorbs light. So, very clever there. No fat on that title. The show is created by Charlie Brooker. He gets most of the writing credit. There are a couple other writers in there, but I think he's the executive producer, the writer, he's the creative thrust behind this. So I did a little reading, and he did an interview with Den of Geek where he said that fans can think of every episode in this season as essentially a separate show on Streamberry that Netflix stand in from the first episode. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I also looked at the Metacritic ratings. I prefer Metacritic. I'm not a huge Rotten Tomatoes guy. Metacritic rates season 5 the lowest, 66. Season 1 the highest, 89. Any guess where season 6 falls?
Somewhere in the middle.
So like what, 70 something? Is that what, 73,
Yeah,
74,
73.
75? Okay. 68.
Hmm.
68 presently. So it is 2 points ahead of season 5. So a little bit of a downward trend for the last couple seasons. So I imagine I could figure this out for myself, but what made you pick Black Mirror season 6 for us to talk about today?
We love talking about this type of dystopian future, these topics around
Do we?
AI. And really, I find that this series is just so unique in so many ways. And I know this was such an anticipated season of the show. And it had been, what, 4 years, right,
Hmm.
since the previous season. And I thought we'd have a lot to talk about with this one, even though I thought it felt a little flat, and we can talk about that too.
Yeah, we should definitely. Just to continue to set the stage for that, though, I briefly mentioned that my best, most succinct statement for the premise for this series is, or was, technology is a black mirror that reflects the darkest sides of humanity, or everyone is terrible. And I feel like originally it was more the first, and now we've kind of drifted into that's the point of every episode is that we're all just terrible all the time, all of us.
Sounds about right.
So, yeah, there wasn't as much baby killing that we're going to talk about in this episode, but yet another upbeat, bright, sunny episode
Yeah.
of Don't Encourage Us.
We're here for you, audience.
That's right. So, episode 1, there's 6 episodes this season. Episode 1 is titled Joan Is Awful. I did a little research into the cast and crew. It was directed by Ali Panku, Pankiw. Do you have
Thank
any
you.
guess how to pronounce that? Panky. Thank you very much. She did episodes of Schitt's Creek, which is why we get the star Annie Murphy. She's from Schitt's Creek as well. We get Salma Hayek in there, I guess, as herself. Basically, that's one of roles she's playing. And Michael Cera has a bit part in this one as well. That was a little bit of a surprise. Any thoughts about the directors or stars?
I haven't watched Schitt's Creek, so I don't really know what the tone of the show is, but I imagine that's why this particular episode didn't start off as dark as other episodes. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a lighter show, very satirically light, kind of fun. It's one of those like neurotic urbanites, and they're surrounded by the dumb, messed up locals who are not as capable as they are. But then, oh no, it turns out some of them are actually pretty solid people, and in seeing that, we see flaws in the main characters who think they're so great and so on. So anyway, premise for this episode, Joan Is Awful, as I would put it, is a quote unquote regular person finds out they're in an ongoing Netflix show fictionalizing their life as they live it.
I'd say that's a really
Any thoughts about that as a
good take
summary?
on this episode. They're the Streamberry episode.
Okay. So yeah, the Netflix stand-in is called Streamberry. It's got all the same graphics, so it's very obviously Netflix. And this woman is working at a tech company, I think, and she has a bad day and a bad experience and fires an employee, not really by her choice. And then she goes home and there's a new show on Streamberry, and oh, it's her name, her day, her life, and future episodes are all basically come out a few hours after she lived it. And it turns out, shocking twist at the end, she's not actually living her life. There's this sort of like layer upon layer where it all goes down to a different woman named Joan, who's even more of a regular person and not a celebrity. And each layer of this Streamberry show has I guess, a more famous actress. Is
Yeah.
that the right way to say that? Selma Hayek's pretty famous, but it's like a more
Yeah, I think so.
awarded
Yeah.
actress, I guess would be the way to put that. Yeah, so it's all happening within a computer that's generating different versions and using celebrity images and blah blah blah. And at the end, the whole thing crashes. They shut it down, and our main character gets her life back.
Very good.
I don't know if you had any thoughts about this one, but the first thought I had is, without the celebrities, would this episode be anything?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, with this episode, I was so aware that they were celebrities that it really drove the
Yeah.
my interest. And the fact that I was watching Black Mirror, the first episode, I thought there's got to be something here.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So when you got to the end, did you feel rewarded for your time?
Not
Did
really.
you feel like there was a good payoff?
I didn't feel like there was a real big payoff in this one. I mean, this idea that they destroy the computer and she's back to kind of I would still say a kind of ho hum existence. It didn't feel like there was a really strong character arc. It was just her trying to figure out, oh, what's going on here? And then at the end, oh, she figures it out. But then now she's happy because she opened a coffee shop, or the original she opened a coffee shop. It's kind of
Right, which
odd.
is weird. It was very odd from a narrative perspective because the characters that we follow, Annie Murphy plays Joan in the story level. As I said, there's different levels, and most of them take place in a computer, so they're all not real essentially, or they're not actually people. They're just AI generated characters. The level we're following is not the real world. So Annie Murphy is playing Joan, but then at the end, close to the end of the episode, that version of Joan, there's a Joan on every level. That version of Joan destroys the computer system from the inside, I guess is the right way to put that, and ceases to exist. But the actress Annie Murphy then, for the remainder of the last 3-4 minutes of the episode, plays herself, and she was on a different journey that we didn't see. And the Joan, who's the real Joan, the original Joan, is also somebody we really didn't see. So they get a version of a happy ending where they're friends, and the actress Annie Murphy has learned to be more grounded, I guess, or I don't know. She got her identity back or her image back, but we've not seen her up to this point in the story. And the Joan that she's friends with is also somebody we have not seen up to this point. So their happy ending feels really irrelevant, and it doesn't really address the problems, like this, the fact that there's this whole legal system that they made a big point of that allows people to be abused in this fashion. That's not really addressed, is it?
No,
It just felt like a very hollow ending that relied too much on celebrities to be
yeah, it
entertaining.
was a bit jarring just to see characters you haven't been following just kind of tacked on at the
Right.
end, right? So
Right.
then the rest of it,
Yeah, I think there were a lot of gimmicks, like, oh, it'll be funny to see the same scene conducted with a different actor or actress. But yeah, I guess so. I
it
don't
fell
know.
kind of
It just
flat.
seemed very gimmicky.
I mean,
Yeah.
the whole idea of this, the AI actor, the image issue, is one of the things that actors are on strike about now. That's one of the
Mhm.
points of contention. I find it really ironic that there's this episode all about that issue that kind of pokes fun at the whole idea of it and how scary it can be at the same time. But now this is actually what actors are afraid is going to happen to them, where they won't be compensated.
I don't think it's ironic at all. I think it's not even a coincidence. I think this is something that they care a lot about, and that's why you could get celebrities like this to participate in an episode that is kind of flat and doesn't really kind of fit the series particularly well, because it was more about other things. This got made because it resonates with actors and probably writers.
So you think it's a statement piece?
I think it's one of those things, like, if you want to be successful and you're not a great writer, not that this guy is a good writer, but if you wanted to be successful and you weren't particularly talented as a writer, then you just figure out, like, you tap your finger on the pulse of society and you write something that appeals to people who will come on board to do this project with you. And then other people will want to release it, and maybe the audience isn't going to be super into it, but it'll get made because it's something that actors and entertainment professionals care about a lot. So they'll let the fact that it's not a brilliantly written episode kind of slide.
I hadn't thought about it this way. That's a fascinating point.
I mean, they made it the first episode
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. It seems like it's a
They really like, because that's the one most people will watch.
yeah, the fact that it's a statement piece about the dangers
Hmm.
of the future when it comes to technology.
Right.
I hadn't thought about
Yep.
it in that way. I had seen it more as a standalone
Yeah.
episode, right? Not something that could be part of a larger narrative.
Well, look, I could be wrong and it could just be a coincidence, like you're saying, but it definitely felt to me like it was a pretty hollow episode. It didn't really say much or do much. And if it weren't for the celebrity faces, which were surprising, I think it would have just been a little confusing that it was up first to bat.
I wonder if Netflix is going to have a statement about their take on this controversy. Just curious.
Maybe this is their statement. Maybe they're trying to stay out of it by making stuff like this so they can point to that.
You,
Like, this is where we stand, but they don't actually have to do anything, or make any promises or sign any deals that say they won't use AI, or they're just trying to stay out of the center by putting
they're
this up front. Did you not see the first
they're
episode of Black
they're just
Mirror?
sending a link to the press with this episode.
That's right. Yeah. What a foolish question. I'll direct you to our first episode this season. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a I don't know, political game you can play.
For sure.
Anything else about this one that stood out to you?
I know they were trying to make a statement about identity and following your dreams and who you really are and feeling trapped in your own life. But yeah, I think overall this one felt kind of flat in its overall tone. It was kind of a really a letdown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's confusing. I mean, because if that's the point you wanted to make, then everything that happened was good. Like, the point is you need your life destroyed so that you can open a tiny coffee shop. I don't know. That's not profound.
And when you have an actor that you're following their ups and downs, you're trying to figure out what's going to happen. And then you just kind of, oh, they're not real. This is the real actor or character that you should be
Hmm.
following.
Right.
I really don't think that works. I understand that they
Yeah.
needed to do it that way for the plot, of course, but it was strange to have it. It almost feels like there should be another episode that follows this new character, but I don't know what that would be, if anything at all.
So I came up with a rating system. Since Metacritic has their own rules, Rotten Tomato has their own rules, I thought it'd be great if we had a simple rating system for our own Black Mirror episodes here, or our own rating system for Black Mirror. So just 1 to 10. I have 2 questions. First question, looking for a 1 to 10 on this. How much did this make you question the impact of technology on the future of our society? 1 to 10.
5.
Okay, that's pretty good. Second question, how much did this make you hate other people?
9.
Okay, so then I would say that's a success for a Black Mirror episode. All right, so our second episode, Loch Henry, was directed by Sam Miller, he did a bunch of episodes of Luther. Do you ever watch
Great
Luther,
show.
the TV show?
Fantastic show.
Okay.
Yeah.
The actors included a few different people, but the ones that stood out to me were Daniel Porter, Podrick Payne from Game of Thrones. Did you recognize him?
I didn't.
He was the bar owner. Yeah.
Huh.
The like friend of the main character.
Oh, I'd seen him in other things, but not from Game of Thrones. I didn't recognize him from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's from Game of Thrones. John Hannah. He was the like father of that character. He's from Four Weddings and a Funeral and the Mummy
Yeah.
trilogy with Brendan Fraser. He's done a lot of stuff. And then, of course, there were other actors, but they're not particularly well known for anything that I recognized. The premise of this one is a film student makes a documentary about his small town and uncovers more than he bargained for. ... His parents are serial killers. What do you think? Did I
Another,
miss anything critical
not
in
really.
that?
No.
Okay, good. So, what are your thoughts? Did Loch Henry leave an impression with you?
Loch Henry left an impression, I think, because at the end, he's winning awards for this documentary, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
feeding off of his own misery.
Right.
And I thought that statement was really well stated, presented. Yeah. I thought he did a great job, the actor, of not saying
Mm-hmm.
much, but just you could really feel the pain that and torture that he was going through. On one hand, he's a huge success, but at what cost to his own mental health?
Right.
I thought at that point, I think it kind of redeemed
Yeah.
itself because it became kind of farcical in the middle in terms of how his
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend discovers that his mom is the killer, and then she just kind of runs into the water, into that stream, and then you assume she's dead. And I don't know, I thought all of that was very it was entertaining, but nothing, I didn't walk away with anything profound about that particular episode.
Yeah, it was a little disturbing because of the amount of torture
Yeah.
in it. And some people would say, "Oh no, yeah, it wasn't that much," but it felt like kind of a lot to me. And I guess that's typical for some of the Dark or Black Mirror episodes. So no real complaint there, just not something that I enjoy as much. And they did seem to kind of get into that a bit with the episode, kind of going back to that idea a few times. Talking about the ending though, I felt like it was a little anticlimactic. I think it resonated with you, which is great. And I don't think it was a bad ending. It's just for me personally, seeing a character embrace the fame that he didn't want the whole time, it created a weird arc for me. One that I guess is very consistent with Black Mirror, like we're all sort of corruptible. But his girlfriend was the one who wanted fame. And then her arc was to accidentally kill herself, which was weird. And then his mom feels guilty and commits suicide, which also seemed like a weird, like that whole sequence. Like, why did she feel so guilty?
It,
Like, why did
it
she
really,
care that her facade?
yeah, it was.
I,
That's a good point. That was really odd, right? Because you see that those videos of her and how they were just horrible sadists, her and her husband. There's this 180 where suddenly she feels really guilty about everything she did, but she seemed totally
yeah,
fine,
or
right?
ashamed, or I don't. Yeah, I really didn't. And then I guess to protect her son in a way, that was the implication. I guess with some. I don't know. I really couldn't. I couldn't piece that character together in a way that made sense to me. So it was a little confusing. And watching the main character benefiting from something he never wanted. He just wanted to make a documentary about some dude with eggs. You know, it was like protecting
Yeah.
those eggs. Like that was the path he wanted. I guess him being corrupted does fit the Black Mirror kind of motif or theme. I don't know. It was just it was a weird, like his best friend gets his successful bar back. Okay. Like
Did
what
you
is
just
that?
feel that he
Yeah.
didn't seem like he was a corruptible character from the get go, or the way that he was just set up?
No, he just seemed like he was floating along. I mean, honestly, it's a little confusing that his parents were so, in a way, like dynamic and organized and purposeful because they raised a kid who just sort of does whatever. His girlfriend or the other, his friend, whatever they said is just basically what he did the whole
Hmm.
time. So I thought it was a little strange. And then he just seemed to ride the wave to fame again, probably not driving that bus himself at all. I guess he didn't really change. Maybe he wasn't corrupted by fame as much as he just stayed passive. I don't know. It just felt a little like
That
yawn,
that's what
Dion.
I got. That he had stayed passive, and he got caught up in this
Hmm.
whirlwind and didn't want to let other people down.
Right.
So that's why
Right.
he was so
So
tortured.
no change.
Yeah,
Yeah. His ethics don't really drive his behavior. So no
yeah,
surprise that he lucks into something successful and there he is. So he'll do that as long as other people put him in that position and then he'll float off to something else. I don't know. It almost seems like there needs to be more from him for it to be a total story, a complete
yeah.
story.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I did enjoy the film montage of filming. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was funny in that barn. Just the way
Yeah.
they set up those shots, it was good. I thought something was going to happen in there. I was just waiting for it,
Yeah.
for some jump scare or something like a Blair Witch.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely don't want to body shame anybody. This is a totally legitimate, serious question. His girlfriend, did she have eyebrows? What was going on with her face? Did you notice that? Am I the only one?
Maybe they were died. Were
I
they
don't know. I
died?
couldn't tell. It looked like they were gone. I didn't know if that was an intentional choice or something else.
Should we ask the audience? Can you leave that in the comments,
Let's
audience?
not make a big deal out of that. I don't know if this is a good question to ask. I just thought maybe you'd be able to clear that up for me real quick. So
Sorry,
moving on
no
to
can
our
do.
rating system. How much did this make you question the impact of technology on the future of our society? 1 to 10.
I'd say one.
Okay,
There
so
really
not
wasn't
much, right?
not
Yeah,
much. Yeah, this was in a what the VHS might come back.
yeah, right. Okay, question two. So how much did this make you want to stay home and just avoid other people entirely?
Yeah, probably a 9.
Yeah, a little bit higher
Yeah,
on that one.
yeah.
Which I think is pretty
You?
typical of the show. It's moving away from the technology piece and it's just really embracing this idea that everyone is awful. That you
Yeah,
just
every single
every
character.
single person, or at the very least, you don't know who's the most awful, but there aren't really any like good people, you know?
Yeah, everyone's a 9 on the awful scale,
Yeah. All right.
if not a 10.
Seriously. Speaking of which, episode 3, Beyond the Sea. This was an interesting one. It really stood out to me as I think a little bit more classic Black Mirror in some ways, but also I had some issues with it. So it was directed by John Crawley, who directed a couple episodes or a few episodes from True Detective season 2. It stars Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad and Josh Hartnett from 30 Days of Night. And I think it included Rory Culkin of Macaulay Culkin fame. I think he was one of the like hippies. Did you recognize a Culkin in there?
I didn't.
Yeah,
Uh,
so I that's what at least that's what an internet search told me. I didn't recognize him initially, but it has been a while since they've had those boyish Culkin looks. So it'd probably be hard to pick him out. So the premise for this one, a kind man suffers senseless violence and it turns him into a sociopath somehow. That seemed like a fair premise
in
statement.
space.
In
Yeah,
space. Well, sort of in space. Sometimes in space, sometimes not in
and
space.
we'll get into that and why that would be. Why there's confusion here.
Yeah. Brief summary. Do you want to take a stab at it? You want me to swing at that one?
If you have it written down, it might be a little bit easier
Okay,
just
I
to really
don't,
get it
but
into a nutshell.
it's not super complicated. It's for some reason like what is it, 1969 or something like that? Yeah, 19
Yeah,
is it?
the 60s
Okay,
somewhere.
1959, something like that. It's an alternate world. For some reason, there are two men on a, we're told, very important space mission on a space station in outer space. No idea what they're doing. I never figured that out. They have robot bodies on Earth. So even though they're living and working on the space station, they can plug into their robot bodies and be with their families. They both have families at home. One of them lives in a sort of city area that's fairly modern with his wife and was it two kids or something? I forget. And then
Yeah,
the other one took his wife and one kid and moved way out into the rural, like a rural area, like a small town. Some crazed hippies for some reason or another.
yeah. I think they're supposed to be similar to the Manson family.
Right. So some like Manson type people break into the first guy's home, the one who lives close to the city. They destroy or damage his robot and tie it up, I guess, and then murder his family horrifically. And then I guess they get arrested, and this guy goes back to the space station. He doesn't have his robot body anymore, so he's stuck on the space station, and his entire family's been killed. Right. So then the other guy, his partner on the space station, says, I'm kind of an isolationist. My family and I are, we live alone, way out on our own. But since you're suffering, you can use my robot. You can jack into my robot body and hang out in the sort of forest around my house and find some peace and not be stuck on this space station forever, however many years they have to do it. And then the guy goes crazy. The first guy, I didn't really
Yeah,
understand that. He just goes nuts. He has so many
I
symptoms. I don't understand.
yeah, I saw that as he goes crazy because he wants to kind of equalize the relationship between him and the other guy by having the same horrors happen to the other guy as he
Why
experienced.
would you want
I
that?
think that's what they were alluding to, that
What?
where he's like, you don't understand what I'm going through. And the way he thought that he would understand it would be to kill his family the same way his family had been killed on Earth.
Okay.
That's what I got out of it, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, of
Yeah.
course.
So your family was killed and you cannot get back to Earth to do anything about it. And then someone gives you access to their robot body. Who are you going to kill?
Yeah, that's a that's a good point.
If you're going to go rogue and you're going to try to murder somebody, I don't feel like it's going to be innocent people so much. I didn't
And
really
now
get that.
you're stuck with the dad in the ship with you
Right.
for years. And
Or
they
he murders you
specifically mentioned,
immediately.
right? But they mentioned that the ship can't be piloted with only one person, right? So
Uh,
they're really kind of stuck now, I guess, wanting to murder each other forever.
yeah. Your family was just killed. How sane and future focused are you going to be? I feel like this story does not go on long after where they cut the episode.
Yeah, I think it's a quick
One
quick ending for one of them.
Right.
You know,
One bloody space wrench. And I think we're done with the awkward tension in the space station, you know?
or another scene where someone says, "Hey, there's something outside that you've got to check on," and he goes out there and then he locks the door, and that's the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
End of episode.
So I think it might have helped a little bit if they had set the stage better for the idea that the two of them need each other. That no matter what happens, they both have to survive, and not just for them, but for all of humanity. Like some sort of idea that like they both are deeply invested in not everyone dying on Earth, and what they're doing is some sort of thing that happened in 1959 or 69 or whatever it was, that had to happen. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah, you mean
something that
like a
was
Sunshine sort of plot?
right, exactly. Like if we it was some real world event, or if they had said like, oh no, somebody launched a nuclear weapon, and if you don't hang out in the space station, it's gonna come back to Earth or something, and everybody's gonna die or what, like then I'd be like, okay, so that is a little bit of a dilemma. And maybe that would cut through the rage and sorrow that you would feel if your family was murdered for either one of them. But as it is, I kind of know that they have that much to live for. And the guy who would do the murdering at the end seemed to not really care about other people at all, except for his family. So then what's his
It
motivation not
was
to immediately murder
it
this
was
guy?
truly bizarre. So she didn't want to see him anymore. Okay, but he like
Right.
couldn't get over that because he
For
was so obsessed with the wife,
why?
and
Okay.
he just goes into a rage and, oh, now you're a murderer too, or you're a murderer. Great. Okay,
Yeah.
now we're stuck on this spaceship forever, basically, and until one of us kills the other, which could
Yeah.
happen at any time.
I mean, immediately would be where my money would go. Like 24 hours, I would bet well inside of 8 hours, one of them
Hmm.
or both of them are dead. So because why not? Like, what difference does it make? They just send other people up to the mission or the space station explodes. Who cares? Like, I haven't been given a reason to care
You're
about
right.
that.
They should have set that stage better. it wasn't saving humanity. They're just on a mission. What are they
They're
doing?
just hanging out.
Collecting like space rocks and coming back?
I mean, if they weren't really celebrities, people knew of them. So I guess you could say they had some fame, but people weren't like, "Oh my god, you're all saving us. Thank you for doing this." They were all just like, "Hey, look, there's the dude who's actually in space and has a robot body." Like, fine.
They really could have alluded to that, right? With at least some news footage about them and the mission, or them doing experiments in space,
Yeah.
something that would have connected you to the importance of the mission, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, and I was a little confused by how the replicas, she said something about how it's very difficult to create another replica because it's tied to you. But then it was so easy. It was like, hey, do you want to use my replica? Okay, sure, lay down.
Right.
Click. And
Right.
his entire consciousness can just seamlessly be transported into the other guy's replica. Like there's no
Yeah.
customization here. It's just you make one of these, you just plug and play anyone's consciousness.
Yeah. I
That was really odd.
That was really odd. Also on that note, why don't they send the replica to the space station and let the humans live on Earth?
Another great question, right?
Is there some sort of reason
Because
for that?
right, because he would just be asleep on Earth
Right.
while his replica is piloting this ship, or
Right.
at least during the waking hours.
Right. So if it was a really important mission, then maybe you could make the point that having a human there is just in case of malfunction. Like we don't want to build like 12 replicas for both of them, just in case something goes wrong. It's such a critical mission that we definitely need humans there. But then you're just going to send two humans if it's that important. And it takes two people. So no backup people for a critical mission. I, it seems
And
like
somehow,
based on what we heard, you just send a couple of those replicants up there, maybe like 10 or 20 of them, or just two if it's just an experiment or whatever, and then pilot them from Earth and have different people take turns piloting them, maybe.
or once the ship gets to wherever it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
then you activate the replicas in the ship,
Sure.
right?
Right.
Because what kind of technology is this? The ship looks like it's from 1960,
Right.
but you've got these humanoid robots that you can create and transfer consciousness between them across light years.
Right.
Hmm. Seems a little weird.
It does seem a little weird. It was very distracting.
Because wouldn't the technology just match? You know, like if you can do this, you would have self-piloting AI ship, right? Couldn't you transfer consciousness into the ship itself?
I mean,
You would
it would
think,
seem like you'd
right?
at
Or a
least be
way.
able to have remote control. Because if you can send a signal that includes someone's consciousness, like they're controlling a body with their mind in real time through space, it seems like you ought to be able to flip a few switches and press a few buttons from the control center as well. Maybe the whole thing was
Yeah,
just an experiment to see if humans could work in space and still maintain lives at home. In which case, back to
I don't think
immediately
they
murdering that
can.
guy.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible.
Well, it's just it's a weird mix of technology and decisions. And I guess we're not supposed to think about it too much, but it was a little confusing.
But that's why we have this podcast, because we're always thinking about these
That's
things.
right. We're going to fix it. So that's the kind of home invasion story that sells a lot of guns.
Yeah, exactly.
So not sure what the message was there, but I imagine some people finally just said, screw it, I'm buying a gun because I don't want to watch my family be burned alive in front of me.
Now,
So yeah,
let
there's
me
that.
let me ask a quick question.
Hmm.
So the Aaron Paul character,
Hmm.
what happens to his replicant?
I guess
Is he
it's
arrested for
still
murder? Is he?
fine. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know. I mean, presumably it's just going to lie on the ground, useless, because as soon as he gets back to the space station, he's going to murder that guy, and then they're both going to end up dying in space. It's not like the cops can come pick him up from that
Mhm.
space station,
So
right?
it's just the replicant killed the family and he's off in space, I guess.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can put the replicant in jail, but what does that accomplish? So why wasn't there any security on either one of them, their
I
families?
don't know. Another good question. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, you would think there'd be some basic security. I mean, or an alarm or a ring
A
or
little
a
bit, something,
something, a
yeah.
doorbell cam.
I mean, they just they acted like
Aren't they
no.
very important?
I mean, yeah, right. Or they aren't, and in which case none of it matters. You know, there's no reason why you need two of them. One of them can just kill the other one and go home, or just die up there because his family's reason for living is gone. I don't know. It just they seem both important and very not important at all at the same time for the whole episode. So that was a little bit odd.
They clearly did not do any good psychological testing on these two before they sent him up there. That's for sure.
That's probably the best point that's been made
Yeah.
so far.
They just they're like, "Are you good at running on a treadmill? Can you put on a spacesuit? You're off."
Let's see. We've got several candidates. One of them is an isolationist who has extreme religious beliefs, and the other one smiles and is happy all the time, but underneath that, psycho. So let's send them
Mhm.
up. I think we've got our
Maybe a
pair.
reality TV show. That would have been a Black Mirror twist that I could have gotten behind.
Yeah, right. Like somebody pull, like they kill each other at the end, and then somebody like opens a door of the space station, like a wall pulls back, and they're actually in a studio in LA or
Yep.
something like that. And the guy's like, not again. Clean it up.
Oh, there we go.
All right. So how
We
much
should
did
be
this?
writing these.
Yeah, totally. How much did this make you question the impact of technology on the future of our
It's a
society?
good question. I think I have a little more complicated answer before I give my rating, but that mismatch between technology, is there a third question, like questioning technology's evolution? Like, are
Sure.
the
What
the
is the question you'd prefer to
robots
answer?
are the robots going to come before the advanced spacecraft? I'd say clearly in this scenario, yes. Um, and space technology is just going to stay in 1965, apparently. But consciousness propelling technology is going to advance by light years. So I'd give that technology a 10 out of 10, and the spaceship technology a 2.
All right. So how much did this make you want to avoid other people and only interact with them via
You
the
said 1
internet?
through 11, right? Because we're going to go with 11.
Yeah,
this was
exactly.
this was off the charts.
Man, I thought hating hippies was like an 80s thing, but I guess that's still around.
No, it's I guess it's universal and
It's still with
transcends
us.
generations.
They had no motive at all. They
Nothing.
just, absolutely nothing. They're just evil because they're hippies, and everybody went, "Yeah, that sounds right."
Yeah.
And then we moved on with the plot. All right, I guess that's where we're at as a society with hippies.
That's it. That's all you need to know. They were hippies. Yeah, they're killing families for sure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, peace, love, and murdering strangers. Isn't that what they paint on their vans?
I think so.
All right, episode 4, Mazey Day, was the title of that one. So for some reason, it was directed by Uda Breisowitz, she's mainly a cinematographer. Directed a few TV episodes, Wheel of Time, most recently. Also, CSI Vegas did a bunch of those episodes. A couple Stranger Things episodes from a while back. Actors in this one, we got Zazie Beetz from Deadpool 2, Danny Ramirez, who was Fanboy from Top Gun Maverick, and
Hmm.
Fanboy being one of the many characters in the ensemble piece that we talked about.
In a previous episode.
That's right. And he's also the new Falcon in the MCU. Danny Ramirez should be popping up more as so the old Falcon is the new Captain America. So now there has to be a new Falcon, and it's Danny Ramirez. So the premise for this one, paparazza is that how you say that? It's not paparazzi.
Paparazzi, I think.
Well,
I think
paparazzi
it's,
is like the plural, right? Is that no?
or is it just genderless and
I'm
singular and
gendering it.
plural? A
I'm going to gender
paparazzo.
it. Paparazza is what I'm going to call her.
Okay,
So
perfect. Let's go with that.
paparazza has a change of heart, and then another change of heart, but then she has another change of heart. And there's a werewolf, and then she has another change of heart. So
Was it a
anything
cocaine
you
werewolf?
It's just a regular werewolf, sadly. Cocaine werewolf would have been more entertaining. So anything you want to add basically to the plot here? You want to throw out a it does we really don't need to go thoroughly through this plot, right? It's very
Yeah, it
straightforward.
is. It is what it is.
Right.
Should I add another change of heart? Just to confuse things.
I think they covered the changes of heart for this guy.
Yeah,
Yeah, basically, it struck me as very much the same as episode one. Hollywood people, not huge fans of the humans who follow them around and harass them and say nasty things to get photos of them at their best and their worst. I'm sure it's a love hate relationship of some sort, but it's pretty well documented ever since Princess Di passed
there.
away or was, died. Did you want to
Uh,
add something to?
there was there was really no depth to any of these characters. I think out
Yeah,
of all the episodes, this is the
yeah,
flattest one. It's like they were
yeah,
just cookie
yeah,
cutter characters,
yeah,
caricatures of
yeah.
paparazzi and celebrities, and you really kind
Yep.
of that one big twist was kind of like, this is
Yeah, it was
bizarre. I
it was almost like they wrote it they wanted to write a story where a paparazzi starts to develop some ethics and
with
morals,
heart,
but then
paparazzi with heart.
doesn't. Right. But then doesn't, but then does, but then kind of doesn't. And they were like, yeah, this story needs something. And somebody just spun a wheel
Yep.
and it
Well,
landed on werewolf. So then, all right, we got to put a werewolf. Let's go back a couple scenes. Let's plant some seeds for a werewolf, and then we'll have them fight at the end. And then our paparazza will redeem herself, sort of at the end, kind
but
of,
not really,
but
because that
not
would
really.
be that would be too much. She still has to get the final shot. She's got to make
Yep,
money, right?
got to make money.
So this was really just a story about paparazzi needing to make money. They're leeches on the
Yep,
actors.
yep,
Actors are pretty terrible too.
yep.
And there's a werewolf.
And there's a werewolf. Yep. Yeah. I mean, the characters are all like, there's a nice one, there's a mean one,
A
there's
goofy one,
there's a goofy one, right? Yeah, it's
like
pretty,
a
and the
guru
actress,
who doesn't really know what he's doing, but the
right?
celebrities think. But in this case, he did know what he was doing because he chained her up for good
Yeah,
reason.
yeah.
I just thought it was really just ridiculous how they needed to get that shot at all costs, and they're just standing there while they're seeing this werewolf. Not
Oh
very
my god!
realistic at all, in the
I
sense
actually
that
I wrote down the dialogue. Somebody yells. So they're in a room. I'm just going to paint this picture for you because it's you've seen it a million times as an audience member. There's someone in a room chained to a bed, sort of. They're turning into a werewolf. The paparazzi, there's like what, like three of them in there.
yeah,
They realize what's happening. So, of course, because they are professional photographers and morons, they start taking pictures as this person is developing claws and teeth. And one of them yells, and this is so cliche, "We gotta go." And then, of course, two of them leave, but one stays there with his camera and he says, "Just a couple more." Quote unquote, just a couple more. Yeah, he's not leaving that room. Come on.
and he took thousands of pictures by this point. Audience, the
Right,
audience should know. It's not like
right,
he just jumped in there and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm not going to get a shot." I mean,
right.
he got every shot, but I guess we're
Yep.
also talking about how they're incessant and driven by pure greed, and it has to be the
Yeah,
perfect
but they're
shot, etc.
self-centered. They're not so committed to their art that they're
No,
willing to risk their own lives. Like, they could have probably established that, but I think from what I would imagine from a Hollywood, like an actor's perspective, it doesn't even register as strange to them that a paparazzi would risk their own life for a photo, like to this extent, no matter what they're confronted with, like something you've never seen before. A magic shark is flying at you in midair. And I think that probably a lot of these actors and directors and famous people probably believe that paparazzi are so disconnected from reality or so greedy that they care more about getting that shot than they do getting eaten by a flying sky shark.
it's a good point.
But
Um,
it kind of seems strange
there
to
was
me.
really no character in this with any redeeming quality. Maybe the sheriff.
Well, there was a
whose lines
waitress
are
who was
what?
nice. Wasn't
Oh
there a
yeah, she
waitress
was.
who was nice?
I think there was a waitress, and the sheriff is like, "Calm down." The typical sheriff thing, "Calm down."
Yeah, that's right.
Every movie, right? Every horror movie you've
Yeah.
ever seen, there's someone who's always take a deep breath, and they're like, "Oh, I'm being chased by a serial killer. He's right outside. Calm down, or I'm going to put the
Yeah.
cuffs on you." I was like,
Yeah.
"This is
And
it."
they don't even look. Like someone comes running in like with ripped clothes or covered in blood or whatever, and their eyes are wide and they're like, there's a monster right behind me or a
Uh-huh.
serial killer. And the police officer doesn't even turn to look. They don't look like just
No,
glance,
he's seen it
glance
all
the other way.
before. This is just
Yes.
an typical Wednesday in
Don't you
the
want to
town
just
of
look a little?
400 where he works.
Just tilt your head just a bit to look behind you. Now, no, just wait till Jason Voorhees buries his machete in the back of your police officer head, like, or you see the knife coming out of your chest.
The
You know,
classic,
you don't want to look around. You don't want to
yeah.
just glance.
Sit
I don't know.
down, have some pancakes. We'll get a fresh pot of coffee on for you.
That's right. Listen, lady, I'm about off my shift,
All right,
so
start
whenever
at the
this.
beginning.
Yes.
What time did you drive up here? And they take out the
You said.
little notepad. All
Yeah,
right,
that's
got
right.
it. While the werewolf is like banging on the glass, about to break through, he doesn't notice.
Oh man, I was rooting for the werewolf. I just, as soon as I saw a werewolf in this one, I was like, oh, thank God. I hope it kills everyone. And it pretty much did. I think
It
I got
did.
what I wanted more
Yeah.
or less. Yeah, it was good. The only other thing about this one that stood out to me is it's a total fantasy episode. Unless this whole thing was happening on the holodeck or her cell phone turned her into a werewolf, then it's just fantasy. So
Mhm.
I don't remember there being a lot of fantasy episodes. Do you remember that?
No,
Is that a Black Mirror thing that they do
no,
much?
not in this way.
Pure
I mean,
fantasy, right?
and what was the technology statement here?
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
So the
Nothing.
question: how much did this make you question the impact of technology on the future of society? Zero.
Zero? Yeah.
Yeah, like unless they're talking about cameras that the paparazzi use.
There really wasn't anything here. You're
No.
right. It was kind of a plot drawn out of a hat.
Yeah.
What if a famous actress becomes a werewolf and she's chased by paparazzi and everyone
Yeah.
dies? I mean,
And
it
then
wasn't.
kills him. Yeah.
It
Weird.
was really, really a weak episode on all counts. You know,
I like werewolves, so I did enjoy that. As far as the premise of Black Mirror, yes, I would agree with you. It was pretty weak. But if you want good werewolf action, fast forward to what, the last 4 minutes, I
yeah, the
guess.
last 4 minutes and you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll get it all at that point. Maybe it's 5 minutes. I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 seconds, something like that. So, how much did this episode make you want to limit your interactions with other humans to the digital
And
world
we're at an 11, maybe a 12 out of 10
because of the werewolf danger?
because of the werewolf danger. Yeah. It sounds like a really
Okay,
dangerous place.
yeah.
Hollywood.
Our episode 5 is a final episode for this season. Demon 79, directed by Toby Haynes, who did Andor on Disney Plus. Andor's really well received. I'm assuming he got this off the back of that. I don't know. He also did Sherlock, Doctor Who, so maybe his BBC connections, got him kind of front runner for this. So the actors in this one, not really famous actors. Anjana Vasan, main character, she had a small part in Spider-Man 2 a few years ago. And Pepa Esidu, probably. He did the Oliver Twist podcast. So not huge names on this one, probably why it's episode 5, I'm guessing. It might be because the end of this too, kind of a good place to end the series or in this season. So anyway, the premise: Demon lucks into the most gullible woman on earth and gives her a shot at killing the next Hitler. Anything you change or adjust
You know,
about that?
that was a quick one, but I think you got the whole episode in a nutshell.
Yeah. Okay. So this is another fantasy episode. It's very tongue in cheek. So it's kind of hard to take too seriously. Basically, a young woman living in, I guess, it's London. Is it London?
London,
It's
yeah.
England. Yeah, London. 1979. It's an alternate 1979. I think the other one was an alternate 1969. So I thought it was strange that they're exactly 10 years apart, 69 and 79. I didn't, is there some
Yeah,
significance to that that I don't
I
get?
don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, a young woman, she's a shop clerk, works at a Sears or a
Department
Macy's or
store of
something,
some sort,
department
yeah.
store. Yeah. And everybody's mean to her all the time for no apparent reason. There's sort of racial, they sort of imply like racial reasons for that partially, but also this woman's really passive. So she finds a small talisman.
Mhm.
I think she accidentally
Bleeds
activates
on it
it.
by accident.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And a demon comes out and he tells her she has what, 3 days to kill three people or it starts the apocalypse.
Yep.
I think is that okay. So definitely another fantasy episode. No tech in this. Was there any technology in
No, it
this?
was just really all the kind of the alternate reality that the demon could summon, but there wasn't any technology. And he, another important part of the plot is he's driven by not being sent into oblivion, because if he
Mm,
fails this mission, he's going to be sent cast off by demons. Did they ever really explain the whole idea of why there would be an apocalypse? Or did he just say hell wants an apocalypse to happen?
I think he said they
But I don't really
don't.
understand, right? Because it's hell, right? Doesn't hell want an apocalypse? But I know you're saying what you're saying is right, that they didn't want an apocalypse. But why is that? He
Mm.
never really explained, right?
Yeah, maybe hell is like a bureaucracy. So it's like trying to sustain itself. And if the apocalypse actually occurs, then maybe the devil's happy, but the rest of the bureaucracy and all the little bit of power that each demon has accumulated, like maybe it's kind of a pyramid scheme here, that all goes away if there's an apocalypse. So devil wants it, but the demon bureaucracy does not. I don't, it would
That
have
would
been
have been
nice if they
funny.
explained that.
That would
Yeah.
have been a good reason. Very satirical, if that was the
Yeah.
case. What did you think was the overall kind of point of this episode in terms of, is it someone who is very passive and finally gets power and what can happen, or is it just a deep down need that this woman has to kill, and now she's empowered to do that, or is it something else altogether that she finally finds love because she's so lonely, and it happens to be this
Yeah.
demon? I was kind of confused by all of that.
Well, I think their point was, or the point of the episode is everybody is terrible, right? Back to you should only interact with other humans virtually because everybody is dangerous and horrible. Even the people who seem innocent are capable of killing us all, right? So that sort of fits what Black Mirror has become. But this character represents that sort of cliche. And in fact, I think many people have lived through this. Many of us have been through this where it's that really winning strategy of being too passive until you build up so much anger that you become too aggressive,
Hmm.
because nobody wants to be assertive, at
Right.
any point in time. I don't know if they were trying to do that or they were trying to say that she's somehow a victim and this is why you shouldn't victimize people because then they'll snap and kill us all. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the point was. I can't really answer your question, but it did seem to me like just that sort of classic. If you're too passive for too long, you just eventually explode and become too aggressive, right? And that's just the way
In
people
that
are.
ending, what did you think about this? The idea that everyone just saw it as a domino and not any type of talisman. Did you just think that was
Oh,
kind of
you mean when
ridiculous?
when she's been arrested and
Yeah.
nobody believes her and then the world
Yeah.
ends? I felt relief when the world ended because it was such a cliche and where is this going? Like once she was arrested, it was sort of like they're just not going to
Hmm.
believe her.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the
You saw
werewolf
that happening.
situation and the sheriff again,
You saw that happening a mile away.
Right, and what are they gonna do anyway? I mean, at least the sheriff could have turned around and shot the werewolf, but in this case, whether they believe her or not was completely
I mean, there was
irrelevant.
no time for them to act at all
Y
to
I
stop it,
mean,
right? Or she
right, no
couldn't.
one would reasonably go murder someone, plus they'd have to let her do it, I guess, or I don't even know, like, that just seems kinda pointless, and then when the whole world ends, fine, like, it's a weird world that they've created for this episode, so for it like, there's not a lot of nice people.
Yeah.
Like pretty much everybody seems either terrible or lazy or just sort of disinterested. So having that entire world burn seemed fine. Having the two of them go off together to live in the void. Okay, sure. I guess she was isolated. Now she made a connection. I guess he was isolated before or maybe he had a bunch of demon buddies. But the fact that they kind of bonded and decided to live in eternity in a void together seems sort of messed up, not
Yeah.
really heartwarming per se,
No,
like,
it sounds pretty horrendous. You would think she would have
yeah.
just let the world end.
Yeah, I don't know that she really thought that
No.
through. I don't know if you want to be trapped in a void forever with really anybody, honestly.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess there's a message there, right? Is this a modern fantasy, or does everyone feel oppressed and they constricted by the rules of society or getting along with everyone such that they view everyone as a victimizer and themselves as a victim, and they really just want to make a connection with another human? And so even if the whole world ends, if they make that connection, then maybe that's sort of like fantasy fulfillment for people these days. Is that where the world is at?
Maybe, or if you make a connection with the demon, things could change for you.
She's not
Maybe
really any better than the demon.
she isn't.
So I'm just going to label the demon a human being at this point because he didn't seem much worse. He's got
No,
magic powers, so that's cool. So he
yeah,
seems a little better than people, you know?
that's
Like,
true.
but otherwise, they're pretty much the same. Maybe she's worse because at least it's apparently his
It's a good
job.
point. He got sent to Earth on a mission and he
Right.
failed, but
And he's just
yeah,
just
he
killing
tried.
three people, right?
Yeah,
Killing three bad people. That was sort of what he was willing to compromise at. Maybe corrupt one woman, kill three bad people, or have her do it, and then he's off. She's the one who, I don't know, her instability took it further. Is that fair to say?
I guess. And would she have gotten away with all of it at the end? And then what would happen? He just disappears and she's still alone, and she got away with
Yeah.
murder. I guess
I mean, I feel like she would have just kept
we'll never
murdering.
know. We'll have to wait for the second part of this episode, season
Yeah.
7.
1989.
Yeah, Demon 80.
Demon 89. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else stand out to you
I
about this
wish
one?
something did stand out
Hmm.
besides the pretty straightforward plot line. I think that's really the theme that really pulled everything together with every one of these episodes we've discussed, right? People are
Yeah.
awful. The world's a bad place. The end.
Yeah. You should just want to avoid everyone because everyone is terrible or they're a werewolf.
That's a good point.
Yeah. All right. So obviously well produced. The seams weren't showing on the productions, good quality across the board. Costumes were good when that was relevant. Some solid actors that they had going here. I think the directors did pretty well. There was nothing that really stood out to me as poor about any of this. The writing was interesting. It felt a little bit like maybe it didn't quite get to the point that it was trying to make a few
I think with
times.
Black Mirror, it's tough because you set the bar so high
Mm,
on so many
early.
episodes that
Yeah.
once you get a whole season of episodes that really aren't up to that standard, it really loses something. I'm wondering if this wasn't called Black Mirror and we watched a completely different series, what we would think, as a standalone series.
Okay, but in that parallel world, what would that be? 2019?
Yeah. Yeah,
20
2019, that's right.
2029. So if it didn't have the Black Mirror name, the budget would be lower, which means no celebrities, right? Or no major celebrities. And you have to write around budget constraints. I feel like that would have made
Most
it better.
likely. They would have had to get more imaginative. But then I
Right.
think you would have had a stronger plot line for each one of the
Yeah.
episodes, right? It would have been a
Yeah.
different show altogether. So scratch that. We need a different
Well,
show
no,
for this
but
to get better.
I mean, I think you're actually, I want to drag that back, unscratch it, because I think that would be better. I think it would be, they would have cut around some of these moments instead of showing as much. They would have implied more. They would have had to be really clever with the directing and the editing to make it work. You would have had to use your brain more because they wouldn't have had the budget to just lay everything out in front of you and make it really clear. And there would have been more for us to talk about because they would have had to rely on implying things more than just showing or
I
just
think you would have
telling.
had something along the lines of an Aniara, right? Where there's a really limited budget, and we discuss Aniara. also in a previous episode.
Oh my God. I'm going to start calling you hashtag. All right. Yes, that's fair. If you want to go back in time and go on a very uplifting journey with a bunch of Swedish people, then check out our Aniara episode or watch the movie, better yet, and then listen if you like. Does that do it for season 6 of Black Mirror, or do you have more you
No,
want
I
to
think
add?
that does it for me.
All right. Well, thank you to the listeners. Thank you to the people who made this project. Like I said, really great on the production side. Maybe even a victim of too much talent and money and high quality production. But hey, check it out for yourself. Reach out to us at don'tencourage@gmail.com. Let us know what your thoughts were. Let us know what you want us to talk about in the future. And I guess we'll be back next week with what? Dead Heat?
I think Dead Heat is a good choice. Let's go with that.
All right. Next week, Dead Heat.